Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Goldie Show. My apologies, we're starting an hour late. Usually I go live at 12 noon. Today I'm going live at 1 p.m. because at 12 noon, I was actually joining Pierce Morgan for the Pierce Morgan show, my first appearance there. And we actually spoke about the Nigerian genocide, the Christian genocide in Nigeria at the hands of Muslim extremists, and it was myself versus the Nigerian foreign minister, actually. And for those of you who have watched my previous live streams about the Nigerian genocide, you obviously know where I stand, and so it was actually very interesting. The Nigerian foreign minister wasn't actually able to counter any of the points that I made. So instead of actually responding to what I was saying, he basically spent most of his time attacking me. And I could tell that he got very upset by the end of it because he was like, I cannot believe you were a politician in Canada, or, whatever. Which just, goes to prove my point that these Islamists and jihadis, when they're faced with the facts, they just self-implode, and then all they do is attack. So I'm looking forward to that. I don't know when it's going to come out. I mean, I hope it's going to come out today. I don't know, but it was my first appearance on Pierce Morgan, hopefully not the last. But I just wanted to give all of you guys a huge thank you. A thank you to the mods, a thank you to the members of this channel, those of you who are paying to support me, and of course, a thank you to all of the viewers who are here, who are joining, who are liking, subscribing, and sharing. Because the reason that I went on Pierce Morgan is because of you guys. It's because of your support. It's because of you guys helping me amplify my voice. And yeah, so big thank you to you guys as well for helping me get the message out there when it comes to radical Islam and jihad and how it's impacting not just Iranians, but various minorities, and various ethnic groups and various religions around the world. So hopefully that was the first and not the last one. So big thank you to all of you for supporting me in that. And my channel has grown, guys. So I began live streaming about a month ago, and my channel has gone from less than 2,000 subscribers to now over 18,000. Again, that's all because of you guys. So I do appreciate all of your support on that. And there is a lot of growth happening. You guys may have noticed that I'm not live streaming every day now. There's a reason for that. I have a number of different projects on the go. So for the next foreseeable future, I will only be live streaming on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays in order to give myself a little bit of time to focus on some of the other projects. But all of these projects are related, and so I'm very excited to share those projects with you in upcoming days and weeks. So today we're going to talk about something, really, it's important. It's also very difficult for us Iranians to talk about, um, and it's impacted a lot of us. So I'm just going to talk about this, and I think it was Gandalf, one of our mods, who was speaking about this in our live stream chat on Monday. Um, there is a water shortage crisis in Iran due to the mismanagement of the Islamic Republic. And one of the dams has dried up, the Karaj Dam, um, which in and of itself is unthinkable, but that dam has dried up. But what's even more horrific is that 74 bodies were found after the dam dried up. And we are going to get into that, but I want to kind of go back a little bit and start with this water shortage crisis. And I just want to point out to you guys how utterly insane the Islamic Republic really is. I actually filmed a video about this yesterday. So if you follow me on Instagram or TikTok, you or even on X, you may have seen that video. It's about 5 minutes, and I kind of go into this rant um, where I talk about how utterly insane the Islamic Republic is, and how much the Islamists and the jihadis and the progressive left and the woke and whatever, They try to gaslight us Iranians when we try to point out how evil the Islamic Republic is, when we point out how evil Sharia law is. We talk about how it's the 7th century medieval ideology that has absolutely no place in modern civilization. Um, and when we talk about that, this is a very good example that I'm about to show you. So a few days ago, the National Union for Democracy in Iran, NUFTI, it's an organization based out of Washington, D.C., one of the few organizations that I personally trust to raise awareness and give real news about what's happening in occupied Iran. So Nufti actually put out a statement here, and I just want to read this for you guys because for those of you who are not Iranian, it's difficult to understand um, how insane the Islamic Republic is and the utter insanity that we Iranians have been dealing with for the last 47 years. So, we're not exaggerating when we say that these people are 7th century barbarians who live in like this 7th century Islamic hellhole. And they've dragged Iran back 1400 years to the 7th century. Guys, listen to this. So this news came out a day before the news about the 74 bodies, which I'm going to get into. So Iran's water crisis is worsening by the day. And instead of addressing its mismanagement, negligence, and corruption, the regime continues to evade accountability. A member of the regime's assembly of experts. So, guys, the assembly of experts is basically a bunch of like Islamic clerics who just call themselves experts, right? These are the people who run the country and have basically turned Iran into a 7th century Islamic hellhole governed by Sharia law. So, one of the people who's responsible for running the country, like this illiterate savage right here, right? Like this Shia Islamic imam, he said that the crisis so he said the crisis, right? So the water shortage crisis, he blamed it on the Islamic regime's failure to enforce hijab laws, saying that drought, the water crisis, and reduced rainfall are signs of God's warning to awaken us from negligence and heedlessness toward him. So this Islamic regime cleric in occupied Iran, right? He's responsible for running the country. He is claiming that the reason that there is a water crisis in Iran right now is because Iranian women are not covering their hair. You heard that correctly, people. This is the so called Assembly of Islamic Experts who are running the country. Meanwhile, Iran's bodies of water are disappearing, ancient sites are at risk of irreversible damage, and residents in Tehran are forced to ration water. And here you can see the image, right? Regime cleric blames hijab enforcement failure for record breaking water crisis. Do you guys think it's Islamophobic for me to point that out? Do you think it's Islamophobic for me to call out how stupid and idiotic it is? Right? There are literally 7th century people running the country who are stuck in their 7th century Islamic jihadi ideology, right? These are the people who are running the country. That this is the Islamic Republic, guys, right? The Islamic Republic, they're saying there's a water shortage in Iran because Iranian women like me, we aren't covering our hair. And Allah is mad, right? Allah is mad. Allah is mad that I'm showing my hair, and Allah is punishing Iranians with a water crisis because Iranian women like me are showing my hair. Welcome to the reality of being Iranian, guys. When we tell you that Iran is occupied by a 7th century Islamic ideology, this is what we're referring to, right? When you have people in New York who are praising the awesomeness of Sharia law, right? They don't know what Sharia law is. This is the insanity of Sharia law. So when we tell you guys, right, when we Iranians say, Sharia law is bad, Sharia law has no place in modern society, This is what we're referring to, right? This is the stuff they don't want you to see, right? Think about that, guys. So you have literally the people who are running the country, they're not blaming the water shortage crisis on their own mismanagement, no, right? Because it is obviously 100% their mismanagement. Again, the country is run by an Islamic dictatorship. They don't actually care about Iran. They don't care about Iran's environment. They don't care um, about the prosperity of the country. What they do, right? They send Iran money over to Hamas. They send Iran money to Hezbollah. They send Iran money to the Houthis, to Hashd-e-Shaabi. They will send Iranian money and resources to their terrorist proxy groups, right? In order to promote their Islamic jihad around the world, right? They even send water to Iraq and other places. They divert water for their nuclear facilities or underground nuclear facilities. But when it comes to the Iranian people, they blame Iranian women's hair, right? Think about that, guys. Think about that. When they're in a minority, they hide their true nature. But when they're the majority, okay, and God forbid they ever take control of your countries like they did to Iran in 1979. But when they are in control of your countries, this is what you can expect. You can expect a bunch of backwards 7th century Islamic clerics who are 100% uneducated, right? Completely uneducated, and they blame the water shortage crisis on Iranian women showing their hair. That's Sharia law in a nutshell, guys. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. This is Sharia law. I mean, this is like this is something you would expect to see in, like, I don't know, the Babylon Bee, or maybe like some sort of weird South Park episode, right? Like, I hope South Park sees this. I hope South Park makes an episode out of this one headline so that at least someone can show the absurd reality that we Iranians live with, right? Someone could maybe expose the utter insanity of the Islamic Republic and what life is like under the Islamic dictatorship, right? So, guys, this is why I say um, no to Sharia law, right? Like, like Islam has no place in politics, right? And this is why we Iranians want to overthrow the Islamic regime, because the Islamic regime is a barbaric, evil dictatorship that has no place in modern society. And speaking of that, guys, speaking of that, I want to go to the more depressing news that's come out of the water shortage, right? So the water shortage has resulted in a lot of dams drying up. And um, here's a paper. So it's in Farsi, but I'll translate it for you guys. So it's here. It says Payam Sipidar. So Payam Sipidar, that's the name of the newspaper publication. Okay. And here at the bottom, this is the caption here that I want to show you guys, okay? It says روزنامه استانی البرز با خشک شدن سد کرج تا کنون پیکر 74 نفر پیدا شده است. So it says the Ostani Alborz newspaper has reported that with the drying of the dam of Karaj, so far, 74 corpses have been found. Okay. So here you see the image of the dam. That's the Karaj Dam, completely dried out, right? This used to hold a lot of water in there. There's images of what Karaj Dam used to look like. By the way, all these dams were built during the time of the Shah, right? Because the Pahlavi dynasty, we call them Iran building Pahlavi family. That's because they literally built Iran. They literally took Iran from a third world country into a thriving, modernizing, almost first world. They were few years away from becoming a first world country. And one of the things that they did is they built a lot of dams. And so this one right here, this was the Karaj Dam. Actually, let me see if I can find a picture from the 70s. Dam, 1970s. Let's see here. Jeez. Here we go. You know what? This is a very good example here. Let me open up this image. Right. Open image in new tab. Oh, no, okay. Okay. All right. Here we go. So this is the Karaj Dam here. Okay, so in 4 decades, the Islamic Republic has turned this, right? So into this. So this is what the Karaj Dam looked like before 1979. Okay, so this was the Karaj Dam under the Pahlavi dynasty. And this is what it looks like today. Okay, so it only took 4 decades for the Islamic Republic to turn this, right, this beautiful, beautiful, dam and reservoir into a barren, dry desert. And the caption here says, "The empty reservoir at the Karaj Dam, pictured here in winter of 2025. The main water source for the Tehran metro area is just one example of the environmental and infrastructural disaster brought to Iran under the Islamic Republic's rule." 100% correct. In fact, guys, the Islamic Republic will typically jail environmentalists. Yes, even environmentalists are not safe in the Islamic Republic, guys. The Islamic Republic will very frequently jail and silence environmentalists in Iran who are trying to raise awareness about the environmental crisis, whether it relates to the waters drying up or whether it relates to endangered species in Iran. The Islamic Republic has been systematically destroying um, Iranian nature, Iranian environment. Many Iranian animals are at threat of extinction. And yet, when Iranian environmentalists call it out, they are put in jail. Yep. So not even environmentalists are safe in Iran, guys. I mean, the Islamic Republic is not just against Iran, Iranian people. The Islamic Republic is not just the enemy of the Iranian people. The Islamic Republic is also the enemy of nature. It's the enemy of the environment. Guys, there is not a single good thing that has come from the Islamic Republic occupying Iran. Not a single good thing. And I will challenge anyone to point at a single positive thing that the Islamic Republic has done, okay, since taking over in 1979. Not a single thing. Anything and everything positive that we have today are because of programs that were implemented by the Shah of Iran prior to 1979, right? All the schools, the combating illiteracy, the universities, the dams, the roads, the bridges, the railroad, all of that was done by the previous um, rulers of Iran, the Pahlavi dynasty. Not a single positive thing has come from the Islamic Republic. Not a single thing. It's not been nothing but death, destruction, and despair, all in the name of Allah and Islam. So here's the dam. Here's what it looked like, okay? Here's what it looked like before 1979, and here's what it looks like today. And what's even more horrifying is that this dam, now that it has dried up, this newspaper, okay, so this isn't even external newspaper. This is an internal newspaper in occupied Iran. And so Iranian newspapers are claiming or reporting that uh, with the drying of of the water in the Karaj Dam, again here you can see another aspect of it, 74 74 bodies have been found. Now let's get a little bit more information about this, guys, because this isn't just random people who just jumped in and drowned. Guys, it's actually an incredibly horrific story. Um, Before I go, Omi, thank you so much for gifting a membership. I appreciate that, and I appreciate your support, Omi. It means a lot to me. All right, so let's go to Kehon Life, published this story. So, in a brief report published on November 9, 2025, by the newspaper Payam Sipidar. Remember, Payam Sipidar is this newspaper here, right? The one that I just shared with you, right? So it says Payam Sipidar at the top. Um, so, in a brief report published on November 9, 2025, by the newspaper Payam Sipidar, at least 74 unidentified bodies were said to have been discovered in the dry bed of the Karaj Dam west of Tehran during the months leading up to September. The remains, guys, listen to this part, many bound and wrapped in materials such as plastics or carpets. Guys, these were not, you know, people who were, accidentally drowned or something. These are people who were literally bound, and they were wrapped up in materials like plastic or carpets, right? Like we're talking mafia style executions here. So the remains were uncovered as the dam's water levels plummeted amid Iran's deepening drought. No official statements have been released regarding the victims' identities or causes of death. And here's the horrifying part. The original article, okay, where is it? The original article was later removed from the newspaper's website. However, the report was picked up by other outlets, prompting speculation among independent journalists and observers that the bodies may be linked to past waves of political unrest. The Karaj Dam, a critical reservoir for Tehran province, has been nearly depleted due to years of mismanagement and record low rainfall. Guys, this is the horrifying part that I want to tell you about. So the Islamic Republic is trying to cover up the fact that there are corpses in the dam, right? Right? So here's the article, right? People took screenshots of this. People took screenshots of this. Again, I'll read this for you. I'll translate. So at the top, it says Payam Sipidar. Payam Sipidar, that's the name of this newspaper that's in occupied Iran. And then here at the bottom, okay, so this part here, I'm going to read it for you. Um, I'm going to read it for you and then I'll translate. So it says روزنامه استانی البرز با خشک شدن سد کرج تاکنون پیکر 74 نفر پیدا شده است, which means so روزنامه استانی البرز means the newspaper for the province of Alborz. Okay, so that's the name of the newspaper. And then it says با خشک شدن سد کرج, that means with the drying of the Karaj Dam, تاکنون پیکر 74 نفر پیدا شده. Up until now, 74 corpses have been found. So this was a big headline, right? Front page headline news, guys. This was front page headline news in this newspaper article, in this newspaper, Payam Sipidar. Okay, front page news. As soon as it started making the rounds, the original article was later removed from the newspaper's website. Guys, this is typical behavior for the Islamic Republic. When I tell you that they have control of the media, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Okay? They are now trying to hide the fact that at least 74 bodies have been found. And guys, these are not people who committed suicide or who accidentally drowned. Maybe one or two, but the vast majority of them were people who had their hands tied and bound and they were wrapped in carpet or plastic. The news is starting to get out here. So this article came out today as well, okay? And I'm going to read it for you guys. So, um, Iranian authorities, that should say Islamic regime authorities, because again, I'm Iranian. The flag behind me is the Iranian flag. These are Islamic Republic authorities, right? So, Islamic Republic authorities have denied reports claiming 74 bodies were discovered at Karaj Dam following collapsing water levels. Iqtisad Online reported on November 12th. So, guys, this article was front page news, okay? It was front page news. It was making the rounds. Iranian people horrified, horrified. And guys, um this is 100% true. You know why? Because there are still some reports indicate that hundreds of thousands of Iranians are still missing. Okay, these are typically young people who have participated in the demonstrations and and uprisings against the Islamic Republic, right? So these are young people who are out there protesting against the Islamic Republic because they don't want Islam, they don't want Sharia law, right? They want to live in a free, democratic society. So they're out there, right? They're out there fighting against the Islamic Republic. The Islamic Republic will murder them. Okay, they will do mass arrests, mass murders. Okay, mass arrests, mass murders. Um, and many of them, their families have no idea what happened to them, right? And what you're seeing here, these, at least 74 corpses in the Karaj Dam, that's just one dam. There are hundreds of dams and reservoirs and lakes and rivers around the country. So just, it's horrifying to think of how many of these dams and reservoirs and rivers and lakes across the country hold the corpses of these young, innocent Iranian people who have been murdered execution style by the Islamic Republic, right? Guys, so when non-Iranians say, why why don't Iranian people rise up? They do. We do rise up. And when we rise up, we're brutally murdered, right? People are mass arrested, taken away, never to be seen again. Never to be seen again. Guys, again, it was front page news just a few days ago. Front page news that 74 corpses were found in a dried up dam in Karaj, right? Front page news. And now the original article was removed from the newspaper's website. The Islamic Republic does not want you to know that they are murdering Iranians. The Islamic Republic does not want the world to know that they are rounding people up, murdering them, and throwing their bodies into the lakes and rivers, right? They are engaging in big brother style propaganda where they are literally forcing newspapers to remove articles. This is something that you see in Big Brother, right? Like that Big Brother Orwellian 1984 dystopia. If you guys have read 1984 by George Orwell, you know exactly what I'm referring to. The Islamic Republic is basically like 1984, except even worse because it has access to even more technology than what George Orwell could have possibly dreamed of in 1984, right? Um, and this is, you know, I think part of the reason that they want to hide this is because they always try to justify their existence, right? The Islamic Republic will justify its existence by claiming that, the Shah was a dictator, all that like jihadi Islamist nonsense that they used back in 1979 to justify overthrowing the Shah. The Shah was not an authoritarian dictator, right? The Shah did not murder people. The Islamists and the communists are the one who are doing it. They're the ones who are murdering young Iranian people, throwing their bodies in lakes and rivers, and then they're forcing newspapers to delete the articles about it as if somehow people are going to forget, right? Now, this might have worked back before the internet existed. This strategy, this tactic might have worked before people had access to social media and the internet. But thankfully, in this day and age, the internet is forever. And even though the Islamic Republic has forced this newspaper, Payomis Sipidar, to delete the article. The screenshot is forever, and the screenshot will always be there. And this is the truth, right? So let's go back to this article. So Islamic regime authorities have denied reports claiming 74 bodies were discovered at Karaj Dam following collapsing water levels. Iqtisad Online reported on November 12th. Several media outlets published reports on November 11 claiming 74 bodies had been discovered following the drop in water levels at Karaj Dam following an alleged initial report in the Payom Sipidar newspaper. So here is the Islamic Republic newspaper. So it was originally published here, but of course the article has since been taken down. A deputy governor of Alborz province for security affairs said the rumor was published with the aim of creating concern in public opinion and is completely fabricated. The claim about water levels and the discovery of bodies is completely false. So as you can see, the Islamic Republic is now engaging in taqiyya, in lies, to deny the fact that they murdered at least 74 people and threw their corpses in the dam. This is something that Islamist regimes constantly do. This is the exact same thing as the Islamist Nigerian government denying the Nigerian genocide, right? It's a pattern here. It's a constant pattern, guys. It's how these Islamic dictatorships operate. Let's continue. Alborz Regional Water Company said publication of material allegedly in Payam Sipidar with the title 74 bodies have been found so far as Karaj Dam dries up is entirely false, undocumented, and lacks any technical and field basis. No cases of discovering bodies of individuals in the dam area have been observed or reported. Following the initial report, a judicial case has been opened for the publishers of the false claim about discovering unidentified bodies at Karaj Dam. Following the publication of the false and fabricated news about the discovery of several unidentified bodies in the Karaj dam bed, Karaj prosecutor's office opened a judicial case in this matter. Guys, these people are lying 100%. Those bodies were definitely found. There is no reason, absolutely no reason for this newspaper to lie. You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of the journalist who broke the story about Mahsa Amini, right? And then she took that very, very famous photo of Mahsa Amini now when she was hospitalized in her bed. And then that journalist was actually put in jail. Let me find that. Let me find that for you. Because like this is exactly what the Islamic Republic does, right? Like again, guys, journalism is not let me see if this is the right article here. Like there's no such thing as free journalism in Iran, right? Like everything is controlled by the Islamic Republic because again it is an Islamic dictatorship. Okay, so here let me show you this article. So this is why we know the Islamic regime is lying about the 74 corpses because they will constantly put journalists in jail for exposing the truth. Like any journalist in Iran who publishes anything that the Islamic Republic doesn't like is automatically jailed, right? And we saw this. The most one of the most famous examples that you guys might be a little bit familiar with is with the brutal murder of Mahsa Amini. Mahsa Amini was a 22-year-old Iranian Kurdish woman who was beaten to death because she wasn't wearing her compulsory hijab properly. According to the Islamic Republic, she was showing too much hair. So the Islamic Morality Guard uh, took her and basically beat her to death. And there's that very infamous photo of her. Let me see if I can find it here, right? Um, Let me see here. Where's Massa Amini Hospital? So let me find the photo for you, so that you guys know what I'm talking about. Okay, here we go. So these photos you see here, okay, these photos were taken by journalists. Oh, here we go. So the Iranian journalists who took these photos of Massa Amini, um, they were jailed by the Islamic Republic. Okay, think about that. So two journalists were exposing the violence of the Islamic Republic when this photo and a few others like it went viral. Those two journalists were jailed by the Islamic Republic, and they were actually in Evin prison. Evin prison is a horrific place. It is, infamous. It is known for its political prisoners, right? So Evin prison is where anyone who goes against the Islamic Republic um, goes. Major. When you are prosecuting the publishers of fake news, that means that the news isn't fake. 100%, 100% major. And this is, in fact, a pattern with the Islamic Republic, 100%. Um, we as Iranians, like, the reason I'm explaining all of this to you is because most of you, of course, are not Iranian, so you don't know how to catch on, basically it's more difficult to catch on to the patterns of the Islamic Republic, right? But for us Iranians who have lived through it for 47 years and continue to live through it, we are very easily able to, see through the lies and the nonsense and the propaganda of the Islamic regime. So the way that the Islamic regime right now is trying to erase that story about the 72 bodies, sorry, the 74 bodies that were found is very similar to what they tried to do in 2022, right? Where they tried to erase the narrative about Mahsa Amini being brutally murdered, beaten to death by the Islamic Republic's morality police, right? The Islamic morality police murdered Mahsa Amini because she wasn't wearing her mandatory hijab properly. Here she is, hospitalized, just 1 or 2 days away from death. Iranian journalists took a photo of her. They wrote a story about her. And what did they get in return? The Islamic regime put them in jail. And I want to share that story with you now, right? So, guys, and this is what I mean when I talk about how Iran is occupied by an Islamic dictatorship. So, Iranian journalists who covered Mahsa Amini's death face 5 years in prison. Hopes of pardon dashed for Nilufar Hamidi and Elah Mohammadi, who were cleared of collaboration with the US. Guys, because these journalists exposed the brutality of what happened to Mahsa Amini, they were even accused of collaborating with the US. Do you see the insanity? Do you see the insanity of the Islamic Republic? Do you see the utter nonsense that we have to deal with, right? Like it's not a joke. Guys, this is not a joke. The Islamic dictatorship is very, very dangerous. I mean, they're stupid, 100%. They're stupid, but they're dangerous and they have access to all of the weapons, right? And they will easily throw you in jail for any reason whatsoever. They will even murder you for any reason whatsoever. And right now, they're trying to hide the fact that they murdered at least 74 people by throwing them into the dam. But let's get back to this story. So this is another example of the Islamic Republic penalizing journalists for exposing the truth about the crimes of the Islamic regime, right? So two young female journalists who were sentenced to lengthy prison terms for reporting on the death of Mahsa Amini. Do you see that? So because those two Iranian journalists reported on the fact that Mahsa Amini was brutally murdered by the Islamic Republic for the crime of not wearing her compulsory hijab properly, they were jailed for that. Okay? Iran is under an occupation, guys. Iran is under an occupation by a brutal and savage Islamic dictatorship. They do not like it when people speak the truth. This is why many people in occupied Iran share information without exposing who they are, because doing so is literally a crime, right? It's hard to imagine, but this is actually what happens in occupied Iran. Journalists are jailed for exposing the truth. Not only were they jailed for that, but they were also accused of collaborating with the United States government. I don't even know where that comes from, but do you see how the Islamic regime will just throw all these like accusations at people, right? So because these journalists exposed the crimes of the Islamic Republic also accused them of collaborating with the United States. Now, thankfully, they were cleared of those charges, because if for some reason, thank God they were, because if you're actually convicted of collaborating with the United States, the penalty for that is death, right? You get the death penalty, right? But even though they were cleared of these so-called charges of so-called collaborating with the United States, they will still spend up to 5 more years behind bars. So these journalists are currently, they're being jailed for the crime of exposing the violence of the Islamic Republic, right? Nilufar Hamidi and Elohe Mohammadi were arrested in 2022 after reporting on the death and funeral of Amini, the young Kurdish woman who died in police custody, sparking the nationwide women life freedom protests. Hamidi and Mohammadi were initially charged with collusion and assembly against national security and propaganda activity against the regime, sentenced to 13 and 12 years respectively. Do you guys see this? Like these are the crimes that the Islamic Republic uses to jail and murder Iranians, right? Collusion and assembly against national security, propaganda activity against the regime, right? Propaganda activity. What does that sound like? That sounds exactly, right, like the kind of false accusation that the Islamic regime is probably going to push against this newspaper for pointing out the fact that 74 corpses were found in the dam, right? Right? So the Islamic Republic not only forced the newspaper to remove the article about the fact that 74 bodies were found in the Karaj Dam. Again, these aren't just people who committed suicide. These are people whose arms and legs were bound and they were wrapped in carpet or wrapped in plastic, right? If the Islamic Republic had absolutely nothing to do with this, why are they now um, forcing the newspaper to not only delete the article, but they're now charging that newspaper. They're charging the publishers. They're going after the publishers, the editors, the journalists. Right. This is the fate of anyone in Iran who speaks out and raises awareness and sheds light on the atrocities committed by the Islamic regime. Guys, this is not a joke. Okay, let's continue with that article. So, regarding the two women who were jailed for exposing Mahsa Amini's death. In January, they were released from prison after 17 months in detention, and their sentences have now been reduced to 5 years each after a court acquitted them of further charges of collaboration with the United States. On Sunday, an Iranian judicial spokesperson, Asghar Jahangir, said the 5 year prison sentences would now be imposed but did not indicate when, meaning that the two women will have to wait to see when the authorities will implement the court ruling. The families and lawyers representing the two women said that they had hoped they would be pardoned and allowed to remain free after state media reported last year that Ali Khamenei intended to pardon tens of thousands of prisoners, including those arrested during the Women Life Freedom protests. Guys, did that ever happen? Did he ever actually pardon? I don't think he did. The guy's a supreme dictator. He doesn't have to put out a post saying that he intends to pardon. He could just do it. He didn't do that. Of course not. Skylar Thompson, Director of Advocacy at the US based organization Human Rights Activists in Iran, said the regime's refusal to grant these journalists the 2023 amnesty represents a blatant disregard for justice. A Tehran based journalist said on condition of anonymity. We had all hoped that Nilufar and Elohe are pardoned soon and are shocked by the announcement. We don't know what will happen next or when and where they will be taken to. Now that they have made this announcement, this in itself is a sentence. They are psychologically torturing them and their families. Human rights activists said that 2 years on, the regime continues to target and punish those who took part in the nationwide protests that followed Amini's death. Iran has already executed 10 protesters, including Gholam Reza Rastoi, who was hanged in August after being convicted of killing a member of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Again, another false charge. According to the Human Rights Watch, relatives of people killed, executed, or imprisoned during the Women Life Freedom protests have also been arrested, threatened, and harassed by the regime. Guys, this part is important here, okay? Guys, so the relatives of people who are killed, executed, or imprisoned during the Women Life Freedom protests have also been arrested, threatened, and harassed by the regime. So when we go back to this article about 74 bodies that are found, do you now understand when I say that there are thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of missing Iranians that we don't even know about? That's because their families, right? Their families have been constantly, constantly arrested, threatened, and harassed by the regime. So it's not enough that the Islamic Republic murders innocent Iranians, right? Not only do they murder innocent Iranians, but they go after the family members of those who are missing, murdered, and jailed. And they will threaten and harass the family members to make sure that they remain silent as well, right? Because they don't want the world to know about the true extent of the crimes committed by the Islamic Republic. This is systematic oppression, guys, right? But we all know, we as Iranians, we know that there are thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of missing Iranians, and the families are too scared to speak up because they have been arrested, threatened, and harassed. We all know someone. We all know someone. And I believe the reason that the Islamic Republic is now trying to deny deny that at least 74 bodies were found is because this is just another way to add fuel to the fire. But the reality is it's already too late for the Islamic Republic because news has spread like wildfire about this. And I'm seeing a lot of social media posts, in Farsi, whether it's on X, whether it's on Instagram, whether it's on TikTok. Iranians are speaking out. This news, it's already made the rounds. We all know about this. So it's too late for the Islamic Republic to put this to hide this news, let's say. But of course, they're going to try to do what they can to stop it, right? So the prosecutor's office has opened a judicial case, right? Um, Judicial case has been opened for publishers of the false claim about discovering unidentified bodies at Karaj Dam. Guys, this sounds exactly like what the Islamic Republic did 3 years ago. Remember when the two reporters reported on Masa Amini? They were charged by the Islamic regime with collusion and assembly against national security and propaganda activity against the regime. right? This is the pattern of the Islamic Republic. I guarantee you, the Islamic Republic will probably also accuse this newspaper of, collaborating either with the United States or collaborating with Israel, right? That's what Islamists do. And for those of you who are following along in the YouTube chat, you can also see that the low IQ jihadis in the chat are like, "Oh, this is an Israeli propaganda channel," right? Like it's the same narrative that these low level Islamist jihadis constantly use, right? Whether it's in Iran against journalists, whether it's outside Iran against, us Iranians who speak out, right? It's the same narrative, it's the same accusations, it's all the same Islamist jihadi playbook, guys. So I hope that you're starting to wake up to this. I hope you're starting to see the patterns. I hope you're starting to connect the dots here. The final thing I wanted to just share with you guys. This is, very very sad news. This is from my hometown of Ahvaz. I was born in Ahvaz. So just I couldn't end my show without speaking about it and bringing this up. So Iranian student dies after self-immolation protesting kiosk demolition. So this is Ahmad Baladi. He was only 20 years old. So I just want to read this for you guys. A 20-year-old man in Ahvaz in southwest Iran who set himself on fire as municipal workers moved to demolish his family's food kiosk last week died on Tuesday, Iranian media reported. So people, what happened here is the Islamic Republic targeted his family's food kiosk. This was their only source of income. Um, and they illegally targeted it, by the way. And then they demolished the food kiosk, and this young man, out of despair, set himself on fire. Um, it's incredibly sad. The people of Iran are um, suffering a lot, and it is always incredibly frustrating. And for me, it angers me. It really does. It angers me that you have these non-Iranians who are out there defending the Islamic Republic when they have absolutely no clue about the horrific reality of what it's like to live in an Islamic dictatorship, a brutally oppressive Islamic dictatorship that can act without impunity, that murders without impunity, or sorry, that murders with impunity. It acts with impunity. Um, it takes with impunity, right? People have no rights in occupied Iran. We speak a lot about the people who are murdered by the Islamic Republic, but we don't speak a lot about the mental health crisis in occupied Iran, where my understanding is on average 3 people a day commit suicide out of despair, right? No one ever speaks about that. But every single one of those deaths are also at the hands of the Islamic Republic. Iran is the Iran is the largest open air prison in the Middle East. The Islamic Republic is the biggest occupier, and they have turned life into a living hell for Iranians. And this young 20-year-old Iranian man burned himself alive out of sheer desperation and depression. So think about that. The next time someone says to you, we stand with Iran, ask them why they stand with a brutal Islamic dictatorship that murders Iranian people and does not value Iranian life. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I appreciate all of you. I want to give a big shout out to the mods, the members, the supporters. Thank you for being here. If sorry, if you guys liked my live stream, please make sure that you like, you subscribe, you share. Make sure you're following me on YouTube. And as always, guys, um, if you're interested, I am writing a book about Middle East 101. It's going to be out in less than a month, so make sure you check it out on Amazon. I'm going to put the link to my upcoming book both in my video description on YouTube as well as on X. So thank you everyone for joining, and I will see you guys on Friday at 12 noon, where we're going to be talking about another issue relating to the Middle East, politics, Islamic terrorism, and jihad. Thank you, everyone. And as always, Payanda Iran, Javid Shah.